Welcome, everyone, to Bad Kids Don't Exist. This is the podcast that helps adults better understand kids to create environments where kids and their caregivers can thrive. My name is Stuart Perry. I go by Mr. Stu. I'm a licensed clinical social worker, a child therapist, and an autism spectrum disorder clinical specialist. And I am so excited to be answering some questions that were written in this week. I've got questions about setting boundaries with kids. I've got questions about children with autism. I've got questions about when kids react in big ways to little things. I've got a question about how to support kids' mental health without putting too much pressure on them or overwhelming them with mental health, and then some strategies about anxiety. And I'm also willing to answer any questions that might come in live on the chat. I'm live right now on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. If you are not yet, make sure you follow me on all those channels in all those places. It's at Mr. Stu TV. That's MISTERSTUTV on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. And there is different stuff on each one of those channels. So check it out and make sure you like, subscribe, do all the things to push me out into the algorithm so that I can help more parents and caregivers just like you better understand the kids and their lives. But I don't want to waste any time. I want to jump right into question number one. This question came in on Instagram at Mr. Stu TV on Instagram. Here's the question. Dear Mr. Stu, I set a rule for my child about screen time, but when I enforced it, I felt awful, like I was being too strict. How can I set boundaries without feeling like a bad parent? Great question. And let me say a couple things before I answer your question directly. First off, parents are doing the best they know how to do. So you will look back on things as a parent and you'll say, oh man, I should have done that differently. But as you learn, grow, and if you feel like you need to go back and apologize, go back and apologize. I don't know exactly what boundary you set with screen time or how you enforced it, but if you feel like after checking out this video that you need to go back and apologize to your child, do that. That shows them that we as adults are willing to admit when we make mistakes, and it teaches them what to do when they make mistakes. But let's jump into the specifics about your question, setting boundaries without feeling like you are a bad parent. Boundaries are so important. They are limits that really help children to understand what is safe, what is not safe, what is acceptable, and what is not acceptable. So just know that setting boundaries is a sign that you love your child. And if there are no boundaries at all, that is not a sign that you are doing your best to love and protect your child. So just keep that in mind, that it is something that you are doing to help your child, support your child, and love them, to enforce these boundaries. When it comes to screen time, there's some pretty staggering statistics. The American Academy of Pediatrics actually put out some guidelines on screen time. And the recommendations are that if a child is 18 months or younger, I believe that's right, 18 months or younger, that they just aren't on screens at all, unless they're making a video call to a trusted caregiver. So 18 months and under, American Academy of Pediatrics recommends 0 screen time. Then from 18 to 24 months, if parents choose to introduce screens, then it should be high quality educational programming that the parent is co-viewing with their child. And then beyond that, from ages 2 to 5, it should be no more than 2 hours per day and of high quality programming. And ages 5 and up should be no more than 2 hours per day. And also in that ages 2 to 5, parents should be co-viewing with their child, watching everything with their child. On average today, given all of those recommendations, on average today, children are on screens about 7 hours per day, and that is just not doing good things to their brains. So, setting boundaries and setting limits in the moment can feel very tough because your child might be really upset about whatever limit it is that you are setting. And it can be upsetting for them to have that boundary enforced, but know that long term you really are supporting their mental health. Now, as you know that these boundaries are so important, and as you know that there are some things you have got to limit with your child and boundaries that you have to set, there are some ways that you can hold those boundaries while still being kind and supportive with your child. It's not about yelling and screaming about the boundary and punishing them in huge ways when they don't follow or accept the boundary, especially immediately. But one of the best things you can do is have a conversation with your child about why the boundary is important. So, with this screen time boundary, let's say that your child is 8 years old and you're talking to them and you say, "Hey, I just want you to know it's really important that you are doing other things other than just watching screens. There's lots of stuff going on in your brain, and when you're on a screen for too long, it can just mess with some of the things that your brain is trying to learn and do, and some of the ways that your brain can grow. So, I'm going to be limiting how much time you can be on a screen each day, but it's not because I don't want you to be on screens. It's because that's going to be really important." Now, then you say, "Okay, so what do you think about that?" And let them talk back. Let them share their thoughts about screens. Let them ask questions. Make sure that there are good reasons for the boundaries that you're setting. And then you can have those conversations with your child and you can hold those boundaries in a way that is collaborative rather than just forcing all these things on them without them even understanding why it's so important. When you have those conversations with children, not only can you apply those boundaries more effectively, but it will teach them over time how to make positive decisions for themselves because they were part of the process. It wasn't just all done to them, it was done with them. And that's really the mindset to hold. Know that those boundaries are so important and that you want to have those boundaries be a part of something with them, not just something you're doing to them. And if you keep that in mind, boundaries can be so effective, and hopefully you will feel a little less uh, uh, guilty. That's the word I was looking for. A little less guilty about the way that you are setting them. Thanks so much for writing in that question. And hopefully that answer was helpful. If you found the answer to this question helpful, make sure that you like and subscribe to this video so that you will not miss out on any of the mental health fun tips and tricks that I've got, especially on YouTube. If you're watching there, be sure that you like this video and subscribe. And if you're watching on Facebook or Instagram, give me a thumbs up or heart. Make sure that you let me know what's working, what's not. Let's move on to question number 2. This one was written in on Facebook. Facebook at Mr. Stu TV, MisterStuTV. Here's the question. Dear Mr. Stu, my child has autism, and I've noticed they often seem distant or prefer playing alone. I worry that I'm not connecting with them in the right way. What's the most misunderstood thing about kids with autism that I need to know? Great question. There are lots of... Oh my goodness. There's a cat somewhere. Hold on. Did you all hear that? Oh my goodness. That was wild, you all. There was a cat that just like screamed and screeched and hissed, and I thought Stark had gotten a cat. He did not get a cat. The cat must be under my house. It must be in the crawl space. Whew. That really scared me. Wow. Okay. Let's go back to question number 2. Oh my goodness. I've been watching Huluween, you all, and it is freaky. So to hear just this cat screech and scream really like made me really uncomfortable. I was afraid to look at the screen and I thought that someone was going to be standing behind me. Okay. Okay. All right. Let's go back to question number 2. Let me read it again. Dear Mr. Stu, my child has autism and I've noticed they often seem distant or prefer playing alone. I worry that I'm not connecting with them in the right way. What's the most misunderstood thing about kids with autism that I need to know? There are lots of misconceptions about autism, children with autism, individuals with autism, and there's not really a one size fits all answer. In the world of mental health and in the world of autism, we say if you've met one person with autism, you've met one person with autism. Everybody is different, just like every single person in this world is different. I can't just say, like, oh, well, here's the one thing. But I can think of a couple that are common misconceptions. The first one that I really want to say is that autism is looked at as this huge, overwhelming diagnosis where if your child is diagnosed with autism, that it's just almost like a death sentence kind of feeling. And that should not be the case at all. As a matter of fact, if your child is diagnosed with autism, what that means is there's a name for this thing, and because there's a name for it, there's a best way that we can support them. If there was no name for it, then you can have some cause for panic because then we don't know what's going on, we don't know how to help, we don't know how to support. If your child has been diagnosed with autism, great. Now we know some of the best things that we can do to help them as they grow. So, misconception number 1 is that it should be looked at as just this huge, overwhelming stress, burden, whatever it might be. It is not, okay? If your child is diagnosed with autism, they need support. If they weren't diagnosed with autism, they're going to need support. Even if they don't have any mental health diagnosis at all, they're going to need support because they're children and children need support. So, there's misconception number 1. But the one that I want to focus on with your question specifically is that sometimes people believe that individuals with autism don't want to connect with other people. And that is not true. It can be that individuals with autism, just like individuals who are not diagnosed with autism, prefer to be more alone. I prefer to be more alone. I know sometimes it can seem like I'm this big extrovert because I speak at conferences and I do trainings and I'm always out there. When I get home, I like to sit in a dark room and be quiet for a long time before I'm ready to get back out there. So it's not that individuals with autism don't want to connect. It's that maybe the way they're going to show connection is different. For instance, I have a client and the way that he shows affection is just by putting his arm around his mother. It's not that he always is talking about how much he loves her and he says thank you all the time or anything like that, but he just likes to put his arm around his mother. And that's the way that he shows affection, that he shows how much he loves to be around her. So don't believe that just because it might not look the way that you're used to, that your child doesn't want to connect with you or that they don't feel connected to you. Look for those ways that you can see, oh my goodness, they are showing me that they love me, or they are showing me that they enjoy this moment with me right now. And if you'll look for those things, you'll see all the time that individuals with autism do like to make connections. It's just that sometimes the way they show connection is different than the ways that other people would show connection. And again, that's something we all do. The way that I show affection and the way that I show that I enjoy being around people is different than other people's ways that they show that affection and show that they enjoy being around people. So don't believe that autism is something to be afraid of, and don't believe that they don't want to connect. And also look for those ways that you can see the connection is being made. If you'll do that, then you'll see that your child likely very much enjoys being around you. You've just got to look for the signs and look for the personalized ways that they're trying to send that message to you. Hopefully this answer was helpful. If it was, make sure that you like this video and subscribe so you don't miss out on any of the mental health fun tips and tricks here at Mr. Stu TV, and especially on the podcast Bad Kids Don't Exist. Great. Oh, and Cassie says the neurodivergent love language that went around various social media. Okay, great. Yeah, there are 5 different love languages that I guess that they would be the neurotypical, quote unquote, love languages. There is words of affection, personal time, acts of service, gifts, and let's see, words of affirmation, personal time, give acts of service, gifts. Oh man. Oh, physical touch. There you go. There's the 5. So I guess that there are some that have been written for those who are neurodivergent that show just the ways that they can show love. But look for those 5 ways as well. It might look a little different than someone else, but those 5 different love languages can be very helpful to be looking for, where it might not be the way that you would show love or the way that you receive love best, but look and see, are they giving any words of affirmation or words of affection, just kind words? Are they trying to do things for you that are kind, acts of service? Are they liking to be around you and close to you and maybe sometimes give you hugs and things like that, physical touch? Are they giving you gifts? Are they making you art projects and giving those things? And then I can't remember the 5th one that and personal time. Do they just like being with you? If those are true, if they are doing those things, then that is a way that they're showing how much they love and care for you. Thanks so much. And Cassie, yes, I would love to see the neurodivergent love languages. That sounds like it could be a great video. Send me that. All right, I'm going to go on to question number 3. You all, I got to pause. I'm still rattled from that cat. That cat, it must have been under my house in the crawl space or something. It was a meow, and I was like, oh my goodness, it sounded like it was coming at me in my house. Oh, okay, I'm back. All right, we're going to move on to question number 3. This one was written in again on Instagram, at Mr. Stu TV on Instagram. Here it is. Dear Mr. Stu, the other day my child had a huge meltdown just over putting on shoes, and I didn't know how to handle it. Why do they react this way over little things, and how can I help them during these moments? Great question. Is one that comes up all the time. And the big thing to know is meltdowns or tantrums or big reactions can happen for a lot of different reasons. But most of the time it comes down to stress, where the child is just stressed out and they're feeling overwhelmed. And the other side of it is that what may seem small to you might not be small to them. You said it was over them putting on their shoes, and you said just over putting on shoes. I don't know if it was the fact that they didn't want to put on their shoes or if they had their shoes on and they didn't know how to tie them. Let's think of both of those scenarios. If it was just they didn't want to put on their shoes, it could be that they were thinking, anytime I put on shoes, I have to go to this place that I don't want to go to and all this. And they were thinking about all the steps ahead. So it wasn't just about putting on the shoes. It was a big deal to them. Or if it was about them putting on their shoes and not knowing how to tie it, it could be that they were feeling stress and overwhelm and embarrassment because they don't yet know how to tie their shoes. And maybe they've been at school and their shoe came untied and they had to ask the teacher and somebody made fun of them and it turned into this big thing. Do you see how something that seems small to us can seem very large to a child? So know that there's some stress and some overwhelm, and what may seem small to you might not be so small if you were inside of their mind. But the number one thing you can do is stay calm. Even when they are screaming and saying, I don't want to put my shoes on. How dare you tell me to put on my shoes? And they're doing the most, just going all out. If you will stay calm, that is the best thing that can help them. If you start screaming at them and raising your voice and making demands and just talking faster and getting louder and saying lots of things all at the same time, that adds on more stress and more overwhelm for them. It doesn't help them calm down. So if you can stay calm, let's say they're yelling and screaming and saying, I don't want to put my shoes on. You can't make me put on my shoes. You can look at them and go, I know, sometimes you don't want to put on your shoes, but you got to put your shoes on. I don't want to put my shoes on. I know, sometimes you don't want to put on your shoes, but you got to put your shoes on. And if you will stay calm, what that does is it sends a message to your child's brain. Children's brains and their caregivers' brains are actually in communication without words. And if a caregiver can stay calm when a child is feeling out of control, it sends the message to the child's brain that, hey, what I thought was scary and dangerous and overwhelming and too much to handle must not be that way because they are staying so calm right now. If you get big and animated and start to yell and scream and demand and all that, then what it sends the message to your child's brain is this is something that deserves a large reaction because they are giving a large reaction. If we keep our reaction small when their reaction is big, then it helps their brain see that their reaction is actually out of proportion. We can't match their energy. We have to put out the energy that we want them to be showing, and then they can match ours. Remember, you are the adult in this situation. So it's not about making demands of what the child should do. It's about showing the child how you want them to be. So if they're having this big reaction, you keep yours really low and theirs can start to come down. If theirs is big and yours is big, then they're going to go even bigger. And then you're going to feel like you got to go even bigger. And then you're going to just keep going until one of you falls asleep. But if they go big and you go low, then their brain will be like, whoa, I thought we were going to have to do that, but I guess we don't. I guess we can come all the way back down here. And that is something that you can do when your child seems to have a big reaction. So to break it all down, keep in mind your child is likely feeling some stress and some overwhelm. So take a deep breath, help them. And then also, it might seem small to you, but it could be bigger to them than it seems to you. And finally, you stay calm when they have this big, huge reaction, and that will help them come down. Don't match their energy. Put out the energy you want them to match, and then they'll be able to do it. Hopefully that was helpful. If it was, make sure that you like and subscribe to this video, especially if you're watching on YouTube. Make sure that you like and subscribe so you don't miss out on any of the mental health fun tips and tricks here that I've got for you. Thanks so much for that question. Okay, let's look at question number 4. This is question number 4 of 5 that I've got today. Question number 4, this was written in an email to question@mrstewtv.com. If you have a question, you can write in there. It's question@mrstewtv.com. Here's the question. Jennifer's watching on Instagram. She says, thank you for all of your sound advice for helping meet children where they are. You are so great. Thank you, Jennifer. That means a whole lot to me. I really do love helping adults better understand kids so that parents and caregivers can calm down some and not feel so stressed, and then both kids and their caregivers thrive. Thank you so much, Jennifer. That does mean a lot to me. All right, so here's question number 4. Dear Mr. Stew, I want to support my child's mental health, but I'm afraid I'm putting too much pressure on them or making things worse. How can I be there for them without overwhelming them? Ooh, great question. In today's world, mental health is such a huge thing, and there is so much mental health this, mental health that, and your child might have this diagnosis, and here's what to do if you see these signs. And there's so much out there that it can feel really overwhelming as a parent or as a teacher or as a caregiver. And guess what? Kids feel that too. So we want them to feel supported in their mental health, but we don't want to chase down every little thing that might be going on and leading to somewhere. Because guess what? If you're looking for something, you're probably going to find it. But we also want children to know that they can come to us if something's going on and but we also don't want them to feel like I'm putting all of this on you and let's make sure that you don't have depression or anxiety or trauma, because then that can add even more stress and overwhelm in their brains. So some of the best things that you can do are by starting small. Really, if you see that your child is, for instance, showing an emotion, just validate that emotion. Don't try to tell them to stop having that emotion. Don't try to switch that emotion. Don't try to even take away that emotion. Just validate it. Look at them and say, oh, I see you're angry right now. Or, oh, I see you're sad. Or, oh, yep, that was embarrassing. Whatever it might be, validate their emotions. And then it comes down to having this consistently safe environment where your child can share with you. So it's not, sometimes as adults and caregivers, we look for these huge moments where everyone is just crying with joy about how great it went. And most of the time, it's just not how life goes. Most of the time, it's pretty mundane and it's pretty day to day. But if you will consistently implement things where you are talking to your child about their day and talking to them about their feelings and talking to them about any difficult things that might be going on and really listening to them, not just sharing your thoughts and sharing your advice, but letting them get out how it's feeling to them and what they think they should do and how their friendships are going and what they're interested in. And you will consistently implement that process. Then when bigger things come along, they won't feel like it's such a burden to share it. If we wait for big things to come along, then the child has difficulty sharing those things because they haven't been able to share little things along the way. They haven't been able to build up that ability to be able to share more and more and more difficult things. If we're just waiting for the huge thing, for the bullying or for the trauma or whatever it might be, then it's less likely a child can even know how to approach you and share about those really tough things. But if consistently each day you're having a conversation with your child about how their day went, what they thought about it, some of the good things, some of the tough things, and just making it normal, not hyper focusing on especially the difficult things, where if your child says, oh, well, I got in a fight with my friend today, they took a toy from me. It's not, oh, how dare they take a toy from you, and I'm going to call the school and everybody's going to get fired. And no, just, oh, your friend took a toy? That sounds tough. Tell me what happened next. And just normalize these conversations, even about difficult things. If you'll do that about a child who got their toy taken away, then when something more difficult happens, they'll remember, oh, well, I shared about this. This is really just one step more than that. And then maybe something more difficult happens. Oh, well, I shared about these things, and this is really just one step more difficult than that. Sometimes parents will tell me that they try this with their children, and they say, I asked them how their school day went, and they said it was good, and then they went to their room, and that's all they wanted to do. Well, guess what? Most of the time, that's how most days feel. If someone were to ask you every single day at the end of your workday, how was work today? For the most part, you're just going to say, oh, it's pretty good. That's it. There's not huge things that happen. And we think that children should have these big answers for us every single time. But if you just still have the conversation, oh, I'm glad it was pretty good. Tell me, what were some of the best things about today? And maybe it's nothing huge. Maybe it's just, oh, I did really like the lunch you packed today. Thank you for that. And I think I did pretty well on a math worksheet. Those were the good things. Okay, great. Doesn't have to be anything huge because, again, if someone were to ask you at the end of your workday to tell them about the best parts of your workday, it likely isn't these huge things where everyone's going to clap and cheer about how great it was. And then you can say, and what were some of the tough things? And they might say, oh, well, I broke the lead on my pencil. That was kind of embarrassing. And the teacher, she seemed to be in kind of a stressed out mood today. Oh, yeah, it sounds like that was pretty tough, but you made it through. Wow. Great. Anything else you want to talk about? That's it. Because again, if someone were to ask what were the toughest parts of your workday, you could go into a whole thing if you wanted to, but for the most part, it's kind of like, well, there was some stuff I didn't want to do, but I just ended up doing it, and that was the toughest part of my day. That's it. Move on. Then, if you'll implement that consistently without worrying yourself that not every conversation has this huge takeaway and this huge lesson and this huge lecture that you were allowed to give, but you'll implement it consistently, then what it does is it tells children, I can tell them about anything. I can share with them anything that's going on. And over time, they'll be able to share more and more difficult things as they see that your reaction to even difficult things isn't huge. If your reaction is huge, then they'll be like, ooh, I don't think I want to share that anymore. Now, if it is something really, really difficult that your child shares with you, then you can say, that one seems like it's something that we should talk about more. Is that okay with you? And now you've opened up for them to be able to share even more about this tough thing without putting all this pressure on them to share about the tough thing. So there you go. Implement consistency about just checking in with your child and not hyper focusing on either the good or the bad, just kind of making it part of the routine of the day and let them share as much or as little about each thing that they want to share about. And then if more and more difficult things continue to happen, then they'll be more and more likely to share it with you because they've seen over time that you are okay even when they share the difficult things, that you have created a safe environment for them to share even tough stuff. If you'll do that, that will really help support your child's mental health. And then if anything ever comes up that is either consistently happening or an extreme, then you can always reach out for some professional help and get your child the support that they need that way. Hopefully this answer was helpful. If it was, make sure to like and subscribe to the video so that you don't miss out on any of the mental health fun tips and tricks here, helping adults better understand kids to create environments where kids and their caregivers thrive. Thank you so much for that question. That was a fun one to answer. Okay, I am on to question number 5. Hopefully that cat does not come back. I'm like on edge right now. I don't know if you all could hear the cat when it came through, but man, I hope it shows up in the audio because otherwise I'm going to sound really, really wild. Whew, I'm on edge from Halloween. Okay, going into question number 5. Here's the final question that I've got set for today. Question number 5 came in this one came in through YouTube. I guess someone posted this on a video and it came in that way. Great. Let me read this and then I'll answer. Dear Mr. Stu, my child's anxiety has been taking over lately and I feel helpless when it happens. What can I do when their anxiety seems to control everything? Great question. And this is one that comes up often. It's one that parents are asking about, especially in today's world where it does seem like children are experiencing high levels of anxiety because of all the things that they're exposed to and all the things that have access to their brains, that all the things that they're viewing and listening to and hearing and talking about and people around them are talking about, it's all coming in and it can create a lot of stress and that stress can lead to anxiety. So there's a couple things that you can do. First off, you said, I feel helpless when my child's anxiety happens. And I just want you to know there's not really much you can do to make anxiety stop. Now, you can make sure that you are the filter, that you are the one that gets to decide what your child is watching and listening to, and you are the one who gets to decide what people get to teach them and all of that. So keep that in mind and work on those things. So if you feel like it's coming from somewhere, you might need to do some more filtering where you are keeping out some of those thoughts and things that they just don't need to be concerning themselves with, that aren't developmentally appropriate or just aren't worth worrying about. Then so if you feel helpless about your child's anxiety, that's pretty normal because there's nothing you can do to control another person or control another person's emotions. But one of the best things you can do for your child is to not try to fix it. That's right. Not try to fix their anxiety. When the anxiety comes up, if our reaction to their anxiety is a huge reaction, and we are doing everything we can to stop the anxiety, and we are rushing in and telling them that, oh, well, don't worry about this, it's all this, and they can see that we are anxious, that they are anxious, that doesn't help their anxiety come down. It actually increases their anxiety. The message that rush in and try to fix sends to children is that, well, this must actually be dangerous. It must actually be something to be concerned about and anxious about, because they wouldn't rush in if it wasn't something really intense. If we can stay calm and normalize that feeling of anxiety, then it allows children to see like, oh, that felt really big, but I'm still in control of myself. In mental health, in the world of mental health, the professional world of mental health, we know the best way to treat anxiety disorders, for instance, is through what's called exposure therapy. So if you're brand new to the podcast, you might not know I have a very large dog who does therapy with me. He's a 130-pound German Shepherd, and he is incredible. Well, people will come in who are afraid of dogs. It is not part of my practice to just remove the dog and tell them that they don't have to face the dog. It is about building up their tolerance to that discomfort to see that not every dog is one to be afraid of. So with Stark, my dog, what would happen is I would let them get as close to his gate as they feel comfortable, and then we'd talk about the different feelings that they're feeling. And then I might urge them to take another step forward and then ask them about their feelings and see kind of where they're at with it. But I'm pushing them to feel more and more anxious and showing their brain and showing them that just because they're feeling anxious doesn't mean that they are in danger. And this is true with children as well. If your child is feeling anxiety, that's not a problem. The problem can come if they're feeling so much anxiety that they can't go do other things. But if they're just feeling anxiety, then it's about, oh, okay, you're feeling anxious? Tell me what's going on. And you just stay totally normal about it. Not this huge, big reaction. Oh, well, let me take away the thing that's causing you anxiety and because if you take away the thing that's causing them anxiety, it sends the message to their brain that must have actually been dangerous. That is something worth being anxious about. But if you leave that thing there and then talk with them about their feelings and their thoughts that they're having, even though they're feeling anxious, then over time they'll be like, oh, well, wow, I got to fully explore that feeling. And even though I fully explored that feeling, and even though I fully felt the full intensity of that feeling in that moment, I am still right here, and I am still completely okay. And then over time, their brain will say, well, that thing that I used to be anxious about, I'm not as anxious about it anymore. Don't try to fix anxiety. Explore anxiety. And this goes for all emotions. I was talking to a parent recently who was asking about their child getting angry often. And so I told them to go on what I call an anger adventure, where it's not, oh, don't be angry, or why are you so angry, or why are you feeling so angry right now? It's, oh, you're feeling angry? Oh, well, wow, tell me how that feels. Oh, wow, yeah, you've got your fist clenched and I can see your teeth are clenched. Oh, and oh, how's your heart feel when you get angry? Oh, it's beating fast. Okay, so you know you're angry. Okay, and from like 1 to 10, how angry would you be? Do you see, now we're exploring that emotion and showing the child that even though they're feeling that emotion, they're still in control of themselves. You can do the same with anxiety and go on an anxiety adventure. Oh, you're feeling anxious, you're feeling kind of scared right now. Tell me, how do you know you're feeling scared? What does your stomach feel like? Oh, your stomach feels like it's turning. Okay, what about your heart? What is your heart doing? Oh, it's beating really quick. And what about your breath? Your breath is, oh, it's going faster than normal. And oh, and I see that you're looking around everywhere. Yeah, that's what it feels like to feel anxiety. Wow. And what is it you think you're anxious about? Do you see now you have helped the child explore all of how their body is feeling? And now they know, hey, even when my body is feeling all these ways, I'm still in control. The thing I thought was really dangerous and the thing I thought was going to make me lose control isn't. I'm okay. I'm right here. And then over time, their brain can relearn what is and is not worth having some anxiety about. Hopefully that answer was helpful. If it was, make sure that you like and subscribe. If you're not yet, make sure that you are following me on all social media. I am most active on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. It's at Mr. Stu TV on all those channels. That's MISTERSTUTV. I would love to have you follow me there. And there are different things across each of the channels. That's it for Bad Kids Don't Exist for today. But if you are someone who is hosting an event or needs a training for a staff of people who work with children, just know I love helping adults better understand kids, to create environments where kids and their caregivers thrive. I find that so much stress, anxiety, and difficulty really just comes from a misunderstanding of how kids are wired a little bit differently than adults are. And when we can bridge that gap, then kids and their caregivers thrive. If that sounds like a good match for you and that next event or training that you need, feel free to reach out to me. You can head over to badkidsdon'texist.com/booking for all the information you need to hire me as a keynote speaker or a workshop leader. I would love to help make your next event a great one. But until next time, make sure to remember that some things exist, some things don't. Bad kids don't exist. See you again soon. Peace.